Blast Music247.com. We're changing the industry, one artist at a time.
Hey, happy Thursday. It's Thursday again. Hopefully, everything is working right. I've had some technical difficulties. That's why we're starting a little late. So, if everybody can see me, hear me, whatever, you guys drop something in the comments and let me know. Because my screen looks totally different tonight. But I am glad everyone's here. Once again, we are marching toward the weekend. I hope everybody has some great plans coming up wherever you are. We are going to talk about tonight how to start a business. That's a question that I get asked a lot. And then also, I help people start businesses. So I wanted to talk tonight about some of the nuts and bolts of how to do it, some things to consider before and things you need to gather, documentation, information you need to have, and kind of how it works on the legal side, kind of behind the scenes. So, as usual, I hope you all have your paper and a pen ready. You're ready to take a lot of great notes. And here we go. Okay. So, when we talk about how to start a business, first we need to know what kind of business, right? Because most people just start as a sole proprietor, meaning they are just them operating a business. So if I'm Nichon Mitchell, I can operate a business called Mitchell Legal Solutions as a sole proprietor, meaning it doesn't have any formal legal structure to it. It's just me operating the business as myself. And so to do that, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to file anything. I don't have to, pay any fees associated with making the company a legal entity. Now, do I still have to pay taxes and stuff? Yes. But not any formal or official fees. So there's Nichon Mitchell, and then I'm a sole proprietor, or I can have an LLC, I can have a corporation. So so the first thing I want to point out is because sometimes people use words interchangeably or they just flow with them and they don't all mean the same thing. So you'll hear people say, "Oh, I got a business, I got a corporation, I got an S corp, I got a C corp, I got a 501c3, stuff like that." There's a difference between a business entity and an IRS designation. Some of these things that people are talking about are actually IRS designations. For example, if you have a nonprofit and you have obtained 501c3 status, that is an IRS designation. Your business is not a 501c3. Your business, hopefully, is either a corporation or LLC that has obtained a 501c3 designation. 501c3 is the actual statute number. If you've watched my podcast before, you see me, of course, talk about the law and statute numbers. And 501c3 is the actual statute number that gives people that allows people to form a company that does not pay taxes and that can raise money from the public. So keep that in mind because some people have a 501c3 that they set up. They set up a business. I don't even, they started working in a business that it may not be a legal entity, but it has 501c3 status. And they think they have a, a business entity and they don't. What is the ramification of not setting your 501c3 up as a business entity? You have all the exposure. So a common theme that's running through tonight is the benefit of a legal business structure is it's going to protect you and your assets from liability for any reason, for getting sued, for debt, for anything like that. It's going to protect you personally so that you don't lose everything if something happens or something goes wrong, which we all know can happen in a business. So that's the common theme. So once you have this common theme of you don't want to really be out here just operating as a sole proprietor, even though you can, But if you want to protect yourself and your assets and your income, you should put it under legal structure. So just say that I'm out here and I'm operating, and I won't use an attorney. Let me say I'm a plumber, and I go, I have clients. I have about 150 clients on my roster, and I go out and fix. So say I make a mistake or I don't make a mistake, because we know you can get sued for anything. But if I get sued and I'm operating as a sole proprietor and that person wins, say they win a $5,000 judgment, a $12,000 judgment, or worse, $100,000 judgment, because I busted the entire pipe system under their house, right? So say they win that judgment against me. If I don't have the protection of a legal structure, then they could put a lien on my house. They could attach any wages or income, any outstanding invoices I have. They can do, they can put a lien on anything that I have, and they can have a judgment against me personally, and that's very detrimental. If you have an LLC and someone sues you and you lose, all they can get is whatever the assets of the LLC, whatever those assets are. So once they get that, there's nothing else to get. They can't come after your personal stuff. So you don't end up losing your house, or at least getting a lien put on your house. You don't end up losing your personal income and stuff like that. So that's the common theme as we run through and talk about these different entities. But before we talk about the different ones, I want to tell you what you should be thinking about and what you need to gather in order to start the business, because that's what we're talking about tonight: how to actually start the business, how to get it moving forward. So, in most states, you will need to file a document at the Secretary of State's office and in your state, and they'll have a process online for how to start a business. So it's either going to be articles of organization or articles of incorporation, depends on which type of entity you're forming. But you will want to get together, you will want to have a business address. Now, I recommend either getting a P.O. box for the mailing address, or getting, um, I will say, a virtual, they do have virtual addresses that you can use. But a lot of times, if you're looking for business funding, which was our topic last week, and it was fire. If y'all didn't see it, go back and watch it. If you want to get business funding, a lot of the business funding cannot be done with virtual business addresses. So please keep that in mind. You need a brick and mortar, actual physical building address, and not even, one of those services you can get where it is an actual brick and mortar, but it's a lot of different businesses inside of there. Sometimes that won't work either if you're looking for business funding. That's just a side note. But you'll want to have a business address. A lot of people operate out of their home. And of course, once you file these documents, they're going to be public record. So you should know, if you use your home address, it's going to be in the public record. And so you may not want to do that. So work out what you want to do about a business address. You're going to need, of course, a business phone number. And you'll want to make decisions like who's going to own the business, what share of the business are they going to own. Like, the law firm, I own that 100%, because there's certain professions that if the person doesn't hold a license, they can't own the business. So I have Mitchell Legal Solutions, and I own that 100% because my husband doesn't have a law license. But we have Mitchell Realty, and we own that 50/50. And that's because you don't have to have a real estate license in order to own a real estate company. Because of course, people have real estate companies to buy real estate, to invest, that they do different things with it. And what the kind of company you want to have, if you're a licensed realtor and you're trying to operate business, that's called a brokerage. So you would have a brokerage that's different than an LLC that's set up to buy and sell real estate. Two different things. So I'm just saying, in terms of figuring out who's going to own the company, is it going to be 50/50? Is it going to be 10/90? You want to work these things out, because they're going to want to know on the paperwork. Of course, phone number, email address, a website, all those things. You want to work out who's going to manage the business day to day. That's going to be on the form. You want to have answers to all those types of questions. Alrighty. So what you want to do also is pick a name for your business. So Pick a name. What I would pick maybe two or three different names, because then what you want to do is go on the Secretary of State's website and you want to see if that name is available. They'll have a service on there that's connected with you filing these papers to form your business that lets you check if a name is available. You need to do that first before you move forward with anything, because if the name is already taken, or if sometimes if it's even close, they won't give it to you. The Secretary of State is the last decision maker on whether or not you get that business name. So when we did Mitchell Realty, we ended up naming it Mitchell Realty Group LLC. But I think maybe I just wanted to name it Mitchell Realty or something like that. But it was already taken, and there was these few like five or six variations of Mitchell Realty something, and so I had to throw group on the end in order to get it to go through because the other ones were taken. So the other thing you can do is if you have a great business name, but you're not quite ready to start your business yet, you can do what's called a name reservation at the Secretary of State's office in the same area that you go to where you're going to set your business up. You're going to check the name to see if the name is available. You can also reserve the name, but you can only do that for a limited period of time. So the longest I've seen a state allow it is 120 days. So if you pay a small fee, maybe $20 or so, $20 to $50, you pay a small fee. They'll hold that name so no one else can come along and get it. Maybe while you're getting other things together, and until you're ready to actually pull the trigger on filing the paperwork. But remember, you can't reserve it for that long. And then sometimes they'll let you renew that reservation. Some states do, some states don't. And then they may only let you renew it one more time, the reservation, right? So you want to, have a plan for when you're going to pull the trigger on getting it. Another thing that you want to think about and have ready before you start the paperwork is, who is your registered agent going to be? The registered agent is the person who you designate, you name the person who's going to receive paperwork if you're getting sued or if you need official notification of something. Your registered agent is that person. Now, it can be just about anyone, but I recommend it be a very mature, accountable, responsible adult because it's an important job. You have to name that person and their address on the documentation and say, this is the person. If I get sued, if there's an important notice from a corporation, if the government is trying to reach me and they can't reach me, send it to my registered agent. So that's a very important person. And I know in Texas, the registered agent has to agree to do it and they have to keep the letter on file at their physical location as proof that they've agreed to do it. A lot of states don't require that. Texas was the first time I saw that. So a lot of this is knowing the requirements in your state. You can ask the Secretary of State questions, but you can't ask them questions that are basically legal questions. But a lot of the Secretary of State website pages have a good FAQ section, frequently asked questions, and you can get a lot of your questions answered there. So, to recap, you want to think about how many people are going to own the business, who's going to operate it every day, where is the business going to be located, what is the address going to be, who's my registered agent going to be, is the name that I want to name my business available. You want to think about all that, and then once you know the name is available and that you can get it, you want to quickly move over to get what's called the form SS4. Everybody needs that form. That's a federal IRS form. That's how you get your EIN number, your employer ID or tax ID number. Almost the same thing. Really, it's called an employer ID when you're going to have employees. It's a tax ID if you're not going to have employees. And another tip to the SS4 to get the tax ID number is that's the same form you would use to get a tax ID number for a trust. For my clients and my friends out here who are going to get their trust together because everyone needs one. So if I tell you to file form SS4, that's the IRS form. That's how you get the tax ID number or the EIN number. So a lot of the information I just asked you, they want to know that on that form as well. But I always say get the EIN number first, even though, you're going to know the name is available. You need to move quickly. So I say get the get the SS4, get that done, and get the EIN number for it, because a lot of states want the EIN number on the application for your entity. Some states do, some states don't. But if you're doing it all in the same day, it's fine. I would just caution about doing that before you act. If you're going to take a long time before you file to get the entity, you don't want to go ahead and get the SS4, because you want to make sure the name is still available. So okay, so you need to do all those things, have all that information together. I would just say maybe jot it all down on one white piece of paper, wherever you keep your notes. I would say get like maybe like one of those one subject notebooks, or wherever you're going to write all your notes in as you're doing all this, so you can keep everything together. So wait a minute. I see a comment, and okay, wonderful. Oh, I see my son. Okay, hey Cindy, my sister friend Cindy is on here, everyone. And then my son is always here. Thank you for your support, son. Love you. Hey Christopher. Are you saying something about veterans businesses? I do need to talk about that. I'm glad you jogged my memory. But late about these business designations. But right now we're still going to talk about how to set that. But you know what? That is part of the setup. So when I just told you all the stuff to think about, also to think about what special advantages you have, in terms of, are you a veteran and you have a veteran owned business? Are you a woman and you can have a woman owned business? And a lot of times, couples out there, everyone listening, if you're a husband and you're a wife going in, let the wife own the business 51%, so that it can be considered a woman owned business. So then that business can be eligible for more benefits. So whoever though has the status that's going to create a benefit, either make it 50-50 or lean it a little bit towards the person with the benefit. So if it's a husband and a wife and the husband is a veteran and it's 50-50, that might qualify as veteran owned. But just to be sure, I would do 51-49 to, and then look, even though your husband and wife, I said before in a lot of my other podcasts, when I talked about divorces and child support, when I talked about contracts, I'll say you can create a contract that says, because whether you live in a community property state or equitable distribution state or whatever, in case there's a divorce in the future, if you start this business, you can say we're married, and we understand the state we live in is community property, but we intend to override that designation. And what we want, if we get a divorce, this is how we want to split this business up. you know it may be that, like, when I was married to my first husband, we had a real estate business because he wanted to be a realtor. I was practicing law, and I didn't want to be a realtor, but I got my broker's license. It was really easy to get, and then that allowed him to work for himself. Well, once we got divorced, they'd be like, well, here, you take it, because I never wanted to be a realtor. Now, just so happened I ended up getting into it. It was fun, and I ended up loving it. But that would be an example of why one spouse would be like, well, I don't even want the business. It's because they helped out or helped start it for some reason, and they don't want it if they're not going to be with that spouse. So you can have a contract that says, I don't want it, or buy me out, or we're going to maintain the 51-49% relationship, or whatever you want. That's what the contract is for. So when you have all this information together and you have decided what entity is best, then you're going to file the correct paperwork to go with that entity. LLC, a limited liability company, that's an entity that has its own paperwork. A corporation is an entity with its own paperwork. And now, when you hear people talk about an S corp and a C corp, that is not an entity. That is not a type of entity. That's an IRS designation. You can have an LLC or a corporation that's an S corp or a C corp. That has to deal with how that entity is taxed on its income and how its dividends and distributions to the shareholders are taxed. That's what those. I'm gonna go more into that, but I just wanted to let you guys know you're not starting a S corp or starting a C corp. You are either starting an LLC or a corporation, and you are further going to file form 2553 to get it a S corp designation, or you'll file the relevant form to get it a C corp designation, that kind of thing. So that's how that works. And so if you gather all the information I'm telling you to gather, once you get to these pages, which are electronic on the Secretary of State website, you'll be able to breeze right through setting it up. It shouldn't take longer, 25, 30 minutes maybe, to set up the LLC I'm talking about legally, to get you the forms that you need. So um I want to tell you real quick, there's something called a shelf company. I actually have one, I own one. A shelf company is a company that someone else has already set up. They did all the formal things it takes to set it up, and they literally kind of set it on a shelf and they waited. And shelf companies have value because they've been set up correctly, they have life on them. So I bought a company that was 3 years old. And now it looks like I've owned the company for 3 years, but I just bought it like 6 months ago, right? Why is that important? Remember, everyone, if you didn't see the show from last week, you missed out. But remember, last week we talked about business funding. And we said that the sweet spot was if you've been in business for 3 years, that's kind of what they want to see. So you can actually buy a company that's been established for 3 years, and you can skip the wait, as they say. You don't have to wait for your company to have been in business for 3 years. So this is a little advanced. But anyway, you could buy the shelf company and you can operate your company up under it as a DBA, or the shelf company can be a holding company and hold your company. And but you can use it to get the credit that you need to operate your company. So that is a little advanced, but I wanted you to know that you can actually buy a company that's already in existence. No one else has owned it. No one else. You'll be the first person to own it. And then when the transfer happens, it'll look like you own that company for 3 years. I bought mine. So mine is a state of Colorado company. Colorado is doing this. Wyoming is doing it. Those are the two states right now that are really big for purchasing shelf companies. They are clean companies set up, already done for you with the right regulations, and you can instantly be ready for business funding if you get one of those companies. That's the benefit to getting it. Um, Another thing you want to think about when you're setting up your company, what you need to know is you're going to need to learn on the front end what the filing requirements are. Like Tennessee, every year you have to file an annual report. I believe in Mississippi you still do as well. Texas removed the annual reporting requirement for taxes, but you have to file a public information form, and every year you have to let the state know who owns the business, what percentage do they own, what location is it operating out of. You have to fill that out every year. So just know, when you start these companies, there are annual reporting requirements to let the government know who owns the company, where it's operating, and that kind of thing. So whatever those are, you should be aware of those. And most companies are going to have this franchise and excise tax requirement that you have to get with the comptroller's office in your state, and your business has to be registered there as well. So normally what happens is, once your business is formed at the Secretary of State automatically sends that information to the comptroller in the state. That's the person who collects all the money. And the comptroller is going to say, hey, we see you started a new business. This is your tax ID number. This is your filing requirement. This is the tax we think you're subject to. Please fill this form out and let us know, everything about your business so that we can tax you correctly. Okay, so know that you'll have to do that part too. And then whatever licenses you need to operate, all the way down to the municipal level. There may be a municipal business license needed, a county license, a state license, whatever type of business you're operating. If you have a trucking company, if you have a professional services company, if you have a healthcare business where you do home hospice, whatever you have, know what licenses you need to operate that company that you're getting ready to set up. Because side note, either sometimes it won't affect it, but what will affect your entity status, LLC, corporation, if you don't file those annual reports I'm talking about, the state will shut your whole legal entity down. They'll shut it down. That's why it's important to know what you have to file and to file it on time. Okay, so, all right, trademarks, copyrights, non-disclosure agreements, non-competes. If you have a product or a service mark, a trademark, anything that needs to be done at the trademark office or the patent office, you want to make sure that you do all that first before you even you got to be careful who you talk about your business to, because if it's not protected, then it's almost not stolen. Okay, so you got to be careful who you talking to your business about. I would say make sure somebody you can trust, but often we don't know who we can trust, right? So make sure that if you need to get trademarks, if you need to get patents, if you need to do that kind of stuff, make sure you're doing that and be careful who you get to do it. Make people sign non-disclosure agreements. It might sound strict or too legally or whatever you want to say. It might be uncomfortable to be like, Grandma, I got this idea, sign this NDA before I tell you about it. But how many of us know Grandma is proud of her baby and she gonna tell all her friends what her baby is getting ready to do? And it could be people listening, it could be whatever, and next thing you know, somebody is operationalizing your idea. So whoever you're talking to, especially if you're pitching something for business or something, you have them sign an NDA. Now, if you hire an attorney and I don't need an NDA, because once you hire me, I'm obligated to keep your secrets, protect your secrets, and all that kind of stuff. Like, I can't go talk about it and tell people about it and all that kind of stuff. But anybody else besides a lawyer that you retain, you want them to sign an NDA that they won't discuss what you're telling them with anyone else. They won't use it for their own benefit. They won't try to market from inside information. They won't try all that kind of stuff. You want to get that done. So make sure that you have those things in place as well as you are preparing to get on the Secretary of State's website in the jurisdiction that you're in the state that you're in, and fill out this paperwork. It won't take long if you gather everything. And so, just make sure you have it. What else did I want to tell you about getting ready? So already look at this. We are at the halfway mark. And so I'm gonna look and see if my producer has a song ready for the halfway mark. Now y'all know we are on this Blast Media Network, and so what I do is we take a little break. This is how the Blast Media Network works. We take a little break, so you can go ahead, use the bathroom, get a drink, get your notes updated, put your questions in the chat, see if there's anything you want me to answer before I move on, and tell y'all the exact difference, the benefit and the disadvantage to an LLC, to a corporation, to S Corp, C Corp, to nonprofit. So we'll talk about that so you can have an idea of exactly what kind of entity you need. And I'll tell you how to set the LLC up where you can run your household out of that and deduct all the expenses and then write that off your taxes. So hopefully you won't have any tax obligation. So my producer didn't drop me a note. I'm not sure if he has a song ready. I was supposed to tell him. That's totally my fault, y'all. If he doesn't, guess what we're gonna do? Keep talking. So let me see if he has a song to play.
This is for my model ties with a Coke bottle. And to my full figures, I push up on your full throttle. Yeah, baby, stop playing on me. You can get all the work, I even put in OT. I'm on go mode, thought I'd let you know this a land of romance. You super classy, but when you vibing with me, we getting nasty. Yeah, never trashy. I'ma dive in it, look at this, slide in it, girl. That's what I like. Only for the night side, I'ma need you a few more times. Had to keep it real, you know the drill. Now bring that ass here. Shit. Girl, we got all night, quit playing. Let's do what we came to do. Ay, cause you know what I need from you. Oh baby, and girl, mamacita, señorita, let me freak ya. From the club to the crib, I'ma show you what it is I've done. One. My drip up on the mill, tell your mama chill. She out and ready and steady, might just get to it. I'ma have to tell her, give me 6 feet. She acting big, just the swag all up on me. Ay, Miss Jackson, what you want? Beware, I'ma show you I'm full grown. I know you here for a good time, not a long time. But listen, can we make it both? You got what I need, I got what you want. Understand what the vibe is. You looking like you ready to go. You ain't got dressed up to the night. So dangerous, you out of line.
Look, ma'am,
do. Ay, cause you know what I need from you. Oh baby, and girl, mamacita, señorita, let me break ya. From the club to the crib, let me show you what it is, 'cause I done one. You got my undivided attention, so is any lady. I saw you from across the room and I was just wondering, maybe if you'd like to take a tour of the crib. You can bring your friend too. Hey, listen, I'd like to show you things. I can have you pulling up in the Benz or a photo range, 'cause I can show you the world. Take my hand, let's explore. Yeah, I'm like we're playing. Let's do what we came to do. Hey, 'cause you know what I need from you. Oh baby, and girl, mamacita, señorita, let me break ya. From the club to the crib, let me show you what it is, 'cause I've done one.
Hey, okay, we are back. I hope everyone, was able to take a minute, because I know a lot of times on here I'm moving fast, but I want to get it all in so at least you guys have a frame of reference and kind of have an idea of what to look for when you're out here kind of doing these transactions. So here we go with the difference, the pros, cons, advantages, disadvantages of these different entity types and IRS designations. So I'm going to start with the easiest one and then we will build up from there. So sole proprietor, that's the basic one that I said earlier. That's just you out here. You just out here. You don't have no legal designation or anything. Now, the deal with that is you don't have to have any formal paperwork done. You, don't have to go through any filing fees or anything to do it. But you are solely 100% liable for whatever problems happen in that business in terms of liability, risk, out as you operate the business. So you have unlimited personal liability, which goes back to what I was saying about getting a lien on your house and a judgment against you and all that kind of stuff. So you risk a lot by operating as a sole proprietor. So they're easier to manage because it's just you doing what you want to do. You don't have a board to answer to. You don't have partners to answer to. You don't have anything like that. It's just you running the business. So it's easier to run. It's easier to manage. And the thing about it though too is that you want to consider in terms of estate planning. When you die, that business dies. So you need someone who knows where the accounts are at and what money to collect and stuff like that. But it's not really a good way to pass on the business to another generation. So with any business structure that I talk to you tonight about, please remember, there's so much case law out here about it and everything. Do not commingle funds. I'm talking to myself and I'm talking to you. Do not commingle funds. Keep your personal expenses on the personal side. Keep your business expenses on the business side. Don't use personal money to pay for business stuff and business stuff to pay for personal stuff. Don't do it. When you start mixing like that, it blurs the line. And if you do have the legal protection of an entity, the court can strip it from you because you've been commingling and mixing money back and forth. So just don't do it so that, say that you do have an LLC and you're the plumber, but you have an LLC, someone sues you and they see that you've been paying your business insurance out of your personal checking account. The court might say, okay, well, you lose the protection of the LLC. And then whatever judgment was against the business that before you weren't liable for, now you can become liable for it. So don't commingle funds. That's very important. And so really a sole proprietor, the only time it's good to operate in this, what they say is if you're operating a low risk business, if it's part-time, if it's a part-time business, they say independent contractors and freelancers, but so say for instance, if you're a notary and you go out and you do mobile notary work, now you should have E&O and a bond if you're a notary. That may be a business that you can operate without an official structure. My opinion, of course, me being a lawyer, I'm going to say, I don't care what you do. Don't ever operate it outside of a protected legal structure, because there's just so much risk these days with the fact that anybody will sue for any reason and how much judgments can be in today's money. So that's that. Okay. So from sole proprietor, then we'll go to LLC. And so LLC is really a hybrid structure between you kind of get the benefits of operating like a corporation, and then you get some of the benefits of being um, almost like a sole proprietor. So it's really like it's a hybrid, it's a mixture of those two, but you get the protection, the legal protection that we've been talking about. So if you own an LLC, you are called a member. The owners of the LLC are called members. And so like for my legal company, I'm the sole member. It's just me. I'm the only one. SOLE, sole member. But if you have a LLC with more than one member, a multi-member LLC, you could be the managing member, or you could just be a regular seat holding member, that kind of thing. So that's the most important thing though, is to get the terminology and the names right, because a lot of times that's how all the paperwork is going to read with the official names, and that's how we can do, when you're doing all this paperwork and stuff, they determine what you are. If you say you're a member, that tells them you have an LLC. So it's a whole separate legal entity. Um, the pass-through taxation. This is why I want to talk to you about the taxes. Now, on a sole proprietor, because you don't have a structure, whenever you make money, it's just you're putting it on your taxes. It's most likely 1099 money, and you'll have to pay the Social Security taxes on it. When you have an LLC, if you're a sole member, and a lot of times, even if you're a multi-member, just like me and my husband own the realty company, that's what's called pass-through taxation. So what's going to happen is your LLC is going to be called a disregarded entity for purposes of the IRS. And you are just going to attach a Schedule C to your personal 1040 tax return. So there's not a separate filing like there is with an S Corp that needs, I believe that's a 1065 tax return. It's not a separate tax return for the business. It's a schedule. When you have and your accountant may do this for a sole proprietor, but a sole proprietor and definitely LLC, you have what's called a Schedule C that's going to attach onto your personal 1040. That Schedule C is going to list all the money that came in and all the expenses that you had. Now, for me, all of my expenses usually soak up the tax liability that I had on my personal 1040. So what's on my personal 1040? My W-2 job is what's on there. So the whatever job that I'm working as an employee and I have an employer and that money is coming in, that's what's on my personal 1040 tax return, just like anyone else. And the reason why this is important, because everybody I know has a side hustle. Everybody I know is working 2 and 3 jobs, a job and 2 side hustles, whatever, right? It's hard out here. And so this is why I'm trying to take a quick minute to explain how that works. So your regular W-2 is like it was before you came up with the great idea on the side. I'm going to make baskets for Easter. I'm going to, sew on the side. I'm going to do alterations, whatever that is. So, but you also, you working at Chase Bank, during the day, or, you working at Costco or wherever you work, right? So your 1040 is your regular income, and that's where all that goes with the normal stuff that's on the 1040. You have the Schedule C attached to that. So say you start up an alteration business. I'll say that because I just bought a sewing machine, and I'm looking. So I bought a sewing machine. I need thread. I need fabric. I need needles. I got to advertise, market. I have to set up a bank account, do all stuff. All that has expenses, right? So say, which we all know that can happen. I spent more money than I made. And so I posted a loss on my Schedule C for my side hustle. That loss comes over here on your personal return. And so say I had a $5,000 loss and I owed $3,000 on my personal return. I'm going to get $2,000 back. So that's why sometimes it's always beneficial to run a business, because whatever expenses you have, whatever things you have, you can work that over here. To the extent that you can have business expenses that are viable, that are reasonable and necessary. That's the IRS standard, reasonable and necessary. And you have a really great accountant, you can, greatly increase your tax situation. I am an author. What business entity do you recommend? Does an LLC make sense? No, a LLC doesn't necessarily make sense unless somebody is going to use your book to kill someone. right? Is it heavy enough to knock somebody over the head? So no, an author, you could probably stay a sole proprietor in that sense. Sometimes it is a question for your accountant. So, but what does an author do though? They do buy extra copies to give away as gifts to people. They go to book signings, which means travel. They have expenses associated with being an author. So the accountant in this sense, so my legal answer is I don't see much risk in that type of business to warn an LLC, but the accountant may say, "Hey, do this LLC so I can write off all of the expenses. I can write them off better if you had an LLC than trying to write them off as a sole proprietor." Because guess what, you can promote your book anywhere. In Mexico, you can promote it in Aruba or Paris. So the big thing is whatever your business is, now it has to make sense. But if you travel and you do anything on that trip that's business, you can make that a business trip. So, some of you out there know I have a online dispensary. I have an online dispensary. And that dispensary I can sell in like 26 countries around the world. So whenever I travel, I carry cards for the dispensary. I carry cards for my other businesses too, but I carry cards for the dispensary. I hand them out. I tell people, hey, some really good products on here. You might want to check out this dispensary and order you some. And so as long as I'm out promoting my business while I'm at the resort, then that I can write that whole trip off. And as long as I do some work on Friday and some work on Monday, I can write the weekend off too. So you can travel and make it hang over the weekend. If you can leave on Monday or Tuesday, you just write that whole trip off. So as a business trip. So let me get to some benefits with the LLC. So that the whole taxation thing and how I just explained that work, that's a really big benefit. Let me see. Make sure when you do the LLC that you have an operating agreement, even if it's by yourself. When you have an LLC, even if you're a sole member, you still have to have meetings and make decisions. You will have what's called a resolution and say, hey, Mitchell Legal Solutions met, and it was resolved today that they will open a bank account at Chase Bank or wherever they're going to open a bank account at, right? So whatever action you take needs a resolution. That's getting a little far on what we're talking about today. Hire me and I will help you out with that. And so some advantages are it's minimal formalities, even though you do have to file the paperwork and you have to have meetings for some things. It's not like a corporation where you have to have board meetings and you have to meet once a year and you have to do these. It's not like a corporation. So it's a mixture between like again, a sole prop and a corporation. It's a mixture. Let's see. Make sure you are prepared to pay your self-employment taxes, but watch this. If you have enough expenses and things and you get enough of a return back, that can help soak up some of that self-employment tax that you would pay. That's generally how my situation works out. Get you a really good accountant. Get you one. I have a great one. I'll give you his name if y'all want to know. So, a corporation, that's starting to get a little bit more fancier. The thing about a corporation is it has a lot more structure. If you're going to have a corporation, you need a board of directors. Side note, you're going to need one for a nonprofit too. But you need a board of directors. If you're going, you need a secretary to record minutes and record the actions of the corporation. You need officers who are going to manage it daily. That's when you contact companies and you see they have vice presidents, senior vice presidents, executive vice presidents, the CEO, the president. Those are all officers of the company. They are carrying out certain functions for the company. It's much more restrictive in terms of how organized it is. It has a lot of filing requirements. The tax return for one of those, it can be extremely expensive to file. You need lawyers kind of always monitoring that situation. And the tax structure of a corporation is there's double taxation. The corporation is going to pay tax on its income, and then it's going to pay tax again when it gives out shares, dividends to its shareholders. When it gives out the dividends, not the shares, I'm sorry, shareholders own the shares. When the corporation pays out dividends, that's taxable again. So there's two layers of taxation. And so then that gets into a whole nother discussion too, that's beyond this, about you guys hear about all these corporate tax breaks and corporations that don't pay taxes and all that kind of stuff. That's a whole nother discussion, but just know there is double taxation. So with that in mind, there's a designation called S Corp that you can get even if you're an LLC. And what that does is it removes the first layer of taxation, and you only get taxed one time at your level, but you can treat the money that you get more like income. You can hire yourself, put yourself on a salary, which you can also do with an LLC, but it's more commonly done in S Corp. So people pick a S Corp designation. The short story is, because we're running out of time, is they picked the S Corp designation to better manage the tax situation. But you shouldn't get you shouldn't think about S Corp or C Corp unless you have a business that's making at least $50,000 a year consistently on its own. If you have a business that's bringing in that kind of money, then talk to an accountant, because remember, S Corp and C Corp designations are IRS designations. Those are not necessarily questions for lawyers unless it's a tax lawyer. So if if your tax situation is looking a certain kind of way with this LLC that you have, then you may want to talk to an accountant and say, hey, is it time for me to do S Corp? Should I do that? Now, you want to talk about writing off liabilities, because a couple of tax years ago, I had about $30,000 almost that I needed it taken care of. I needed it. Right. My accountant was able to use the S Corp to take care of a lot of that liability. And I still ended up getting back like $6,000 that year. So an S Corp can help with soaking up or taking care of extensive liabilities. Question: can I apply for an LLC in Iowa but live and plan to operate an LLC in a different state? Yes. So that kind of was, I don't want, the two are not related, but when I got the shelf company, that's what it was. So yes. So you can live somewhere, but decide that the laws in another state are more favorable to the type of ownership you want to have for your company. So that's when you see companies may operate in California, but they're a Delaware corporation. These days, the states out west are making themselves more appealable to corporate status. So the state where you start your business, that's its domestic location. That's domestic. So any other state then is a foreign state. So for example, I live in Texas, but I bought that shelf company. It's a Colorado company. It was organized in Colorado. So it is a Colorado corporation. When I registered that business in Texas, I had to register it as a foreign LLC conducting business in this state. So it's foreign to Texas. Even though I live here, it wasn't formed here. So you can do something. So say, which I probably am going to do this, but I gotta look into what it means to do it tax wise and for business funding reasons before I do it. You can re-domesticate the company, which means I'm going to change its domestic location from where it was originally formed to where I live or to another state. You don't even have to live in the state you domesticate it to. So you can re-domesticate a company to another state. So you do not have to live in the state that you form the company in. You're forming the company in the state that has the best laws for what you're trying to do. Question: how do you sign checks and documents under your LLC? Do you use your real name and the business name, or only the business name? So banks have gotten funny these days, and you want to ask the bank how they want you to sign. Some of them say for deposit only, and you don't even have to put the business name. Some of them say for deposit only, and then you put the business name. And then some of them, if you're a signer on, when you open the account and there's a signature card, If you're a signer, they'll let you sign the back with your name. Like they let me do that for Mitchell Legal Solutions. If I have a check written out to Mitchell Legal Solutions, they'll let me endorse my name on the back because it's a sole member company. I'm the only one, and they'll let me do that. So what I do is I just make sure I have a good relationship with the bank that I'm banking at. And I say, hey, what's your bank policy on how you want this endorsed? Because y'all, I've had accounts everywhere. Chase, Bank of America, credit unions, back in the day, any bank you can think of, I've probably had an account there. And when I tell you they all have had different policies, because I'll go into one bank and sign it a certain way, and then the check is messed up and they won't take it. Before I endorse it, I would ask, how do you all want these checks endorsed? Because every bank is, I'm seeing these, they have their own policy, based on different things for fraud and money laundering and all that kind of stuff. They're just implementing these federal laws differently. So it's generally, I don't even want to say it's generally going to be the same, but you'll know at that bank, this is how I do it. And then if you just get a relationship of, you can do it, on your phone, take the picture of it. A lot of times that makes that question where you don't even need it. You just take a picture of it and deposit it into your business account, and it's fine. Let's see. Question. What if you do not file the yearly requirement for your LLC? Can it be filed for that year? So if I understand your question right, if you're talking about like the annual reports and stuff like that, yeah, because I think I missed one from the trucking company I had. Well, I missed it in Tennessee and I missed it here. But look, you can call up and say, hey, I missed the annual report and I'm going to file it. So yeah, you can file the ones you missed. But the deal is you want to try to get to them before they shut your business down. They're getting faster and faster about shutting the business down because they want people to be in compliance. But if you've missed one, there's no worry. Even if they did shut it down, you can get the business reinstated. So you just have to either look on the website, Secretary of State, the same place where you formed it. A lot of times that's the place where you'll file the annual report. Sometimes it's at the comptroller's office. So just know how it works in your state. And then, but it'll say reinstate my business. It'll say in the FAQs, I missed the report. What do I do now? So there is a way to reinstate the business and start it back up. Let's see. Physical address for the LLC, I missed it. What if I don't want to use my home address? What are my options? So your options are a few different things. You can be creative. Like if you have a friend with a physical business, then and say, hey, can I lease the use of your address? Or you can get one of these virtual office companies. I have one, Opus is the one I was using. There's also iPostal. That's one. So there's several companies out there that will give you a virtual address, either just the address and no physical access to the building, or where you can have physical access to the building and the address as well. It just depends. And they're fairly reasonable. You can get a virtual business address for as little as $14 a month or as much as $99 a month if you want a physical building. Just be careful. The part you may have missed earlier is if you're trying to get business funding, a lot of these virtual addresses are not accepted, and it's going to kind of mess up your opportunity to get business funding. So that's something to work out before you start using the physical address, but before you start using a virtual address like that, because it's a pain in the butt to have to go through the process to change that address, because you got to go back through the Secretary of State and update the address and all that kind of stuff. So you can either use the address of someone with a business and see if they'll let you use the address, because sometimes it's not good to link it to two totally different business types, or you can get the virtual address. So another question, what's one piece of advice you'd give women building businesses today? I would say definitely take advantage of all the women-owned business opportunities. There was a bank here and they got bought out by someone, but they had an account that was, they had you go to banks, they have, teenager accounts and this kind of account and that kind of account, but they had one for women-owned businesses, and they had a whole network of women and that would meet monthly and would just talk about their businesses. They network and pass out cards. And I would say take advantage of all of those opportunities in your community. And Alignable seems to be everywhere, and they have a lot of these networking meetings. But I would try to bank with a bank that was serious about helping women-owned businesses. I would get my business women-owned certified in every area that I could, and just take advantage of the different platforms out there that's gearing their services towards women. So what's also a little bit beyond this, but I should tell you when you're setting up a business is you're going to have to pick what's called an NAICS code for your business. That's basically just saying what the business does. I would put a little bit of effort into that and not just pick a number, because it doesn't matter what business you have, you can become eligible for government contracts. The government hires everybody, notaries included. Notaries, real estate agents, whatever it is you do, the government has a government contract for it. So you want to get your NAICS codes correct on the front end. And those are also important though when you get these woman-owned, veteran-owned, whatever, specially disabled-owned business, that kind of thing, whatever you're trying to get, you want to get the codes right so that you can match that up with whatever funding or government contracts you're trying to get. So I'm looking at the question again. I ain't following instructions. It said one piece. That was a few pieces, but I hope they were helpful. Okay, so what time? 6:58. It's 7. Okay, y'all keep the questions coming if you have them, and so we'll just run maybe 5 minutes over, and I'm gonna cover. So real quick, what I said in the advertisement this is how, so you can have a LLC and run your household off of it. So what you would do is you'd set up an LLC just like you have a business, but you would title your house and your cars and different thing. You would title it in the name of the LLC, and the LLC would hold that property. And the expense of running it, you run that through the expense, like the lights and cable and phones and all that kind of stuff. You run it through that, and it would be a business just like any other business. What was I going to say? Oh, and that would shield the stuff from any kind of lawsuit that may come or any kind of liability you'd have in the future. And then that way, that stuff is not attachable. Now, you can do that, what I said, but don't mistake that for the different kind of protection of a trust. Because if the LLC owns your house and cars and all that kind of stuff, that is not passing it on to the next generation. That's not protecting it from being lost because it got tangled up in the probate process. I want to make sure I choose my words carefully. That's why, because it's two different things. Some people are like, I won't get a trust. I'll just get one of these household LLCs, one of these personal LLCs. That's not the same thing, because the trust will actually make sure that title and ownership and everything passes to the next generation seamlessly. And whereas if you just have it set up as an LLC in a business, it's not going to pass seamlessly. It's still going to wind up in probate, and your family is still going to be trying to untangle all this and figure out what to do. So you can get the benefit of running your personal life like a business in terms of the tax write-off, the expenses, the advantages, and all that kind of stuff. You can do that, but it is not a substitute. Now, one thing you could do, if you had this LLC and you're running your personal life inside of this LLC, you managing, you doing the groceries, Kroger, Costco, these are all expenses. You writing off on your personal LLC. When you get the trust set up, the LLC will fall up under the trust. And you commit the LLC to the trust. So that would be one way to clean that up. So, question: if you have a business account established with an LLC that is resolved, do you have to file for taxes if there's still money being deposited or withdrawn from your account? When you say the LLC is resolved, I'm wondering, do you mean dissolved? I'm going to answer the question like you mean dissolved. If you have a business account established with an LLC that's dissolved, do you have to file for taxes if there's still money being deposited or withdrawn from your account? Depends on how much money, and it depends on why it's going in there. Why, if there was a business and it was an LLC and money is still going in there, is work still being done and people are still being paid? Like, why is the money still going in there? If the business is over with, where's the money coming from? That is what needs to be known to answer that question. And so, depending on the origin of the money, um, and then do you have a way to offset it with an expense or something like that, which, your accountant can help you with that. I would say the safest thing to do, because how many of us know we don't want the IRS bothering us, right? We don't want the IRS knocking at our door. The best thing to do is to get some tax advice from a trusted person, not from the person sitting at the booth in the Walmart, not that person, y'all. Get y'all a good account. It don't have to be a CPA. Doesn't have to be a CPA. It just get a good accountant and ask them that question. Say, hey, I have this money coming in. This is why it's coming. This was the origin of why it started. This is where, kind of what's going on, and let them say, yes, that's reportable, or no, that's not reportable. So that's really more of an accounting question. I'm giving you the a basis, the starting conversation with your accountant, because like I said, what we need to know is, why is it still going in there? Why did it start going in there? And why was the company dissolved? Is the work not going on anymore? You have to know all of that to know whether or not we even need to report that. So let's see what else. Let me make sure okay. Oh, so a nonprofit, let me just tell you real quick. If you want to start that. So remember I said you don't particularly have to have an entity. Your nonprofit shouldn't be a sole proprietorship, but it can be, because remember, it's a nonprofit because you got this 501c3 designation. To get that, you file form 1023 with the IRS. And there is a short form called 1023-EZ that you can file if it's $50,000 or less worth of money that you have or will be coming in. But the regular form is 1023. That's the form you file for the IRS to determine if you are eligible for 501c3 designation. Also, when you look up 501c3, which you should look it up so you know what it says, know that there's more than 501c3. That's what everyone talks about, but there's also 501c4. There's 501c7. There's other categories along in there to see what kind of organization you have. So some people might say, oh, for what you do, you can't be a 501c3. Yeah, but maybe you could be a 501c4, or maybe you could be a 501c7, which a lot of sororities are. So you need to check and see if you qualify for any one of the other tax exempt designations, and don't assume just because you can't be a 501c3 that you cannot have a tax exempt designation. That's not necessarily true. 704. Do we have any more questions? No, I'm not seeing any. And so if you're going to do the nonprofit and you're going to have a business entity, set that entity up and then do the 1023 application to the IRS to see if they will give you the 501c3 designation. You don't just set it up and become one. They have to award it to you. Okay. Just like the form 2553 is to be an S corp. You have to get a letter from the IRS that says, yes, you can be an S corp. Yes, you can be a 501c3. You don't just get to become one. You have to meet the qualifications. Make sure you have a board of directors if you want to be a 501c3. Make sure you have the name. They're probably more likely to do it if you do have a business entity and not if you're a sole prop. Be ready to pay the fees. There can be state fees, but then there can be the federal fee be around $600. And then make sure for whatever you're filing that you guys are respecting timelines and getting stuff back within 60 days, 30 days, 14 days, whatever it is. Like with the 501c3, you have to turn that in within 27 months of the last day of the month that you incorporated your business. See how confusing that can be? So the federal government timelines can be kind of clunky. Just know what they are. I hope this information has been helpful. I hope this helps you guys get started. Please reach out to me either on social media or call me. Maybe the number can scroll real quick, but a lot of you have my number. You know how to reach me, text me, and I can help you get your business started. And then we can also talk about risk management. What's risk management? Risk avoidance. Like I put in the advertisement real quick, that is making sure that you are operating in a way that doesn't subject you to a lawsuit. It doesn't subject you to liability, that you have enough insurance, how you operate, that you have the right contracts in place. You have the right policies and procedures. You have the right standard operating procedures. You have everything you need need to shield yourself from liability as much as legally possible. I love my viewers. I love you guys. This is always a lot of fun. Catch the replays out there if you missed any of my other episodes, and I'll see you next week. Okay? All right. Bye.